I'll start, है ना? Good morning, all. This is Shweta from People Matters, and we are back with an exciting session of our webcast in partnership with C2C OD on the topic Getting to Kirkpatrick Levels 3 and 4. Training is still on trial, charged with incurring expenses in excess of the value it provides the organization. Training must reinvent itself and transcend the classroom. Attend this Kirkpatrick webinar to learn tactics for building programs and initiatives that enhance on-the-job performance and impact the bottom line. Now, this webinar focuses on specific tactics at Kirkpatrick levels 3 and 4. You will learn ideas that all professionals can implement in their own organizations. Whether you are new to learning and development or an industry veteran, this webinar will teach you the newest and most powerful ways to implement the 4 levels directly from the creators of the Kirkpatrick model. After this session, you will be able to define the true desired result for any program or initiative, determine the specific tactics to influence on-the-job behavior for a program or initiative, and integrate elements that enhance on-the-job behavior and bottom-line results into a program planning process. I take the pleasure to invite and introduce the speaker for today, Preeti B. Rao, Head of Learning Effectiveness at C2C Organizational Development. Hi, Preeti.
Hi, thank you, Shweta. All right, so are we good to start, Shweta?
Just a bit, I'll just introduce you, Preeti, to my audience.
Yeah.
So Preeti is a well-respected learning and development professional with over 17 years of experience with different corporations. Being a certified Kirkpatrick facilitator for Kirkpatrick partners and one of only 2 gold certified Kirkpatrick practitioners in India, Preeti has delivered several public and in-house workshops on the Kirkpatrick 4 levels of evaluation. She's also worked with several organizations on customizing their evaluation strategy as per the Kirkpatrick philosophy. She has received her Birkenhoff certification on high-performance learning journeys. Let me remind you, our partner for today's webcast is C2C Organizational Development. C2C Organizational Development is a high-performing team of organizational development consultants, facilitators, and content designers who believe that people are at the core of an organization's success. This team is global in presence, ethnicity, mindset, and is passionate about seeing people and organizations work better together. With in-depth experience in multiple industries and work across all layers of an organization, they bring people development and business strategy together to deliver solutions with real business impact. Being official affiliate of Kirkpatrick Partners in India, C2C OD effectively assists individuals and organizations in building solid and memorable learning experience linked to performance. We have saved time for you to ask your questions at the end of the webcast. So for those who are live, they can simply submit or post questions at any time during the session. We'll try to respond to as many questions as the time allows. Now we have an exciting topic to discuss in this webcast today. So without any further delay, let me invite Preeti to take over. Over to you, Preeti.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shweta. Welcome, everybody. For those of you who are online, welcome to the session today. For those of you who are going to listen later, have a great day as well. Today, we are going to talk about the topic of Kirkpatrick getting to level 3 and 4. And this is a topic that I have been trying to work with for a long time. And it is a work in progress. It does take time to get to level 3 and 4, but hopefully today I'll be able to share some great tips with you that you will be able to take back to your work and apply as well. So in order to start, yeah, I hope you're able to see my screen now. So very quickly, the first image that I definitely want to share with you is that of Donald Kirkpatrick. Donald Kirkpatrick passed away in 2014, but he was the founder of the 4 levels. It was a very simple story how he came about the 4 levels themselves. He was doing a PhD dissertation, and he was a professor in a college, and he was thinking that we do a lot of teaching, but we are not really sure whether that teaching is really getting effective or not. Is it useful or not? So that's how he came about the 4 levels. He said, okay, we spend some time with them in the classroom. So when we spend time with them in the classroom, do they like it or not? Do they feel it is, they are able to connect with me or not? Am I giving them the right kind of input or not? Those kind of things. And that's where he came up with level 1, which was a reaction. Level 2 learning was, okay, I'm teaching them something. Have they learned it or not? That is something simple that I do check in terms of exams, etc. But is there more that can be done? So the learning level 2. And level 3 behaviors, all right, so these people are now learning, but they do go on to the job. And what happens when they go into the workplaces? Are they applying any of the skills that we taught them or not? Or is it just some knowledge that they have which never gets used again? So there came the behavior. And finally, if these people apply these behaviors on the job, is the business seeing any benefit out of it or not? So that's where the 4 levels really came from. And this was his philosophy on how to do evaluation. But that is also, unfortunately, one of the reasons why the industry has struggled for so long, because he actually never called them level 1, 2, 3, 4. It was only later when the Training and Development magazine printed the article that they called it level 1, 2, 3, 4. And we as an organization, as an industry, got stuck with, okay, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, we must start with 1. And then we go to 2, and then we go to 3, and then we 4. And that never is the right way of doing it. So he took some of the blame for it and realized that he had to create a team of people who would go out there and spread the word that it's not the right way to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's actually, when you're thinking of learning evaluation design, it has to go 4, 3, 2, 1. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. But what I really wanted to ask you was, if you think about learning evaluation, why do we evaluate? What are some of the reasons you evaluate for? And go ahead and answer your questions in the chat box. I do understand that there is a lag between the time that you type in the answers and I get the responses. So I'm going to go ahead and continue talking, but if I see some messages in the chat box, then I will come back and address those. So why evaluate? Well, there are 2 or 3 main reasons why we evaluate. One is to improve the program, and that is the effective training part of it. So, we've designed a training program. We really want to know, is it a good training program or not? Is it resonating with the audience or not? Do people find value in seeing the program or not? Do they feel that all the components of the training program are relevant to them or not? So all these are things that people think about when they think of effective training. There are 2 other reasons, and that is the training effectiveness piece of it. Whenever I do a public workshop and I ask people this question, I get a lot of responses around the improve the program, and I also get a lot of responses on the maximizing organizational results. That's the final 3rd box that you see there. We get a lot of responses from people that's the reason why we evaluate. We evaluate, 1, to improve the program, give feedback to the trainer, all of that, and also we evaluate to make sure that we did a training program. Did it add value or not? Did it make sense to the people who the business sponsors who asked us to run it, and did they feel that we had added value or not? Now, that being said, a lot of times the problem is that we are not really evaluating for improving on-job performance. So how many times do we evaluate to check that behavior change has occurred on the job? Surprisingly, not that often. I have worked with several large organizations, and each time it is about, okay, let's see, we did this fabulous training program 6 months ago on, I don't know, whatever topic, design thinking or whatever topic you want to take. And we did this wonderful program. Now let's see, how that program has impacted business, what kind of results have occurred. You know what? Probably none, because we didn't even make sure that behavior changed on the job. And unless that happens, you are not going to see any results. So how can we then start to think a lot more about evaluating for improved job performance, and not just evaluating, but also creating the required systems in place in order to get that on the job performance to happen. And we'll give you a couple of tips on how to think about that later during the session. This is a story of a lady called Marianne. Marianne was the head of L&D at this extremely large casino in Las Vegas. That's the beautiful casino that she worked with. And Marianne was the head of the university, the Learning and Development University of this casino. And Marianne was presenting to the entire board of directors of the casino at their annual meet. And she was presenting to them the results of the work that they had done in the course of the year. And here's the report that she presented to her board of directors. She said that, I'm taking the role of Marianne for right now. Board, thank you for giving me the opportunity for presenting this to you today. I am so proud to say that over 10,000 people attended our training programs last year. I mean, that is incredibly amazing that we were able to reach out to 10,000 people. Our customer satisfaction scores were fabulous. People really loved us, loved our training programs. Our facilitators are like rock stars to them because, they really feel that these guys bring in the right kind of energy, bring in the right kind of knowledge into the training room. And that's why we've got a 4.7 out of 5 in terms of customer satisfaction scores. We've seen a 37% improvement from pre to post test. That's fabulous. Industry standards hover around 25%. So if we are at 37%, we are doing a good job, believe me. We don't want to become redundant. We don't want to repeat the same old programs again and again and again. So we do want to stay current. So we are out there scouring the industry reports, looking at what's new, what's up and coming. And we add at least 10% more courses to our list of courses each year so that we stay current and we are giving our participants the best possible, the cutting edge kind of knowledge that they need in order to do their job better. We also realized over a period of time that graduates from our courses, people who attended our courses, were promoted sooner than people who didn't attend our courses. So that's interesting. That means our training is giving them the right kind of skills that helps them get promoted sooner. And also that their scores were higher with regard to employee engagement than people who didn't attend our sessions. So, you can see that we've done some great work this year. I'm really proud of my team, myself. We put in so much effort to get everything going. And I really hope that you can increase our budget for next year so you can continue to do the fabulous kind of work that we do. All right, I'm going to stop being Marianne now and go back to being Preeti. If I am being honest, and if I'm thinking about the kind of report that Marianne presented, what am I thinking about it? Is it a good report that she presented? And I'd like you to share your comments, if you can, in the chat box. Do you think Marianne presented a good report? And if you thought it was good, what was good about it? Did you think that she needed to have presented something more, something different? What was that she might have presented? And let me tell you, anyway, what happened to Marianne's University. A year later, Marianne's University was shut down. And there was a very clear reason why it was shut down, because at the end of the presentation that Marianne did, her stakeholders asked her, so when you mean 4.7 out of 5 customer satisfaction score, whose customers are these? Are these the customers of the casino? Or are these your customers as a learning organization? And she said, I don't deal with the customers of the casino. I only deal with the customers of our participants, who are our participants. They are our customers and they are happy. So what about the external customers? Well, that's your job to do it. You have to make sure that the customers are happy. I don't deal with them, so I can't make sure that they're happy. All right. So, what kind of data do you have that shows that, people who attended your courses got promoted earlier than others? I don't have any data. HR, they're very finicky about sharing data. Nobody gives us anything. But, this is something that we heard in our conversations with people, just because we like to stay in touch with our people. So they told us that they got promoted. So we feel that it's probably they got promoted because they attended our courses. And it went on and on and on. And the big problem was that none of Mary Ann's answers had anything to do with business. It was about L&D, of L&D, for L&D, but nothing to do with the business. And if you are presenting these kind of results to your stakeholders as well, better be worried about the budgets that you get, about your very survival, because this is not enough. It needs a lot more. Organizations need to know how are you impacting business? How are you making changes? How is behavior change occurring? And only then are they satisfied these days. So really think about what kind of data you're sharing. I spoke about this, so I'm going to go through this very quickly. The 4 levels pretty much are reaction, to what degrees participants reacted favorably to the learning event. Learning is, did they acquire the right kind of knowledge, skills, and attitudes based on the participation of the learning event? Knowledge is, of course, very easy to measure. You could do tests, etc., if you wanted to. Skills and attitudes are a little bit more you have to think about, but you know what? It doesn't have to be a formal evaluation. It could be something as simple as observing role plays in class, observing them answering case studies, and you can get a lot of your answers right from there. And it might not be something that you do later. Behavior is, to what degrees participants apply what they learned during the training now that they are back to the job. Now, this is where I think our entire story is going to be hinged upon, because unless behavior change occurs, the learning which had happened in the previous level is kind of useless, because I'm not doing anything with the learning. And the results are not going to happen because the behavior didn't change. So this is where I think the real crux of the issue lies, and we've got to do a lot more than we are doing today to make sure that behavior change happens. And of course, results, this is the easy one, right? Because once behaviors has changed, and if you've identified the right kind of results, there's no difficulty here. This is going to happen on its own anyway. So to what degree targeted outcomes occur as a result of the learning and subsequent reinforcement? And I will bold, underline, capitalize, color them different colors to stress on the importance of those 2 words, subsequent reinforcement. Because unless that happens, you might probably not see any kind of behavior change as well. So if I were to get you to think for a moment and think about the 4 levels, reaction, learning, behavior, and result, these are 2 questions for you to ponder on and then put your answers into the chat box for. How do we allocate spending for training evaluation? What is the percentage that we spend on each level? Do you have a budget in your organization, first of all, for training evaluation at all? Or is it just L&D budget, and then in that, if evaluation happens, it happens? And if you do have a budget for L&D evaluation, how much of that budget do you spend on reaction, learning, behavior, and result? And I'm going to wait for just a moment to see if we get any responses at all or not, and then I will continue. Great, I'm seeing answers to the previous question here, which she said it was, some people are saying it was an incomplete report. Business leaders will always like to understand the impact of training on business performance. Love the responses. It was an incomplete report. Tangible gains in terms of the business versus performance. She did not speak the language of business. Absolutely. Shruti said that we would also like to see what an exemplar report looks like. So Shruti, just to give you some clarity, when we do our Kirkpatrick 4 levels of evaluation certification, you come across examples of what a good report looks like. Unfortunately, I don't have that with me today, but we should be able to share that with you if you do attend certification. Great, all right, so moving on. And I'm going to go back to moving on into the slide that we were at. So do put in your responses of what percentage do we spend. But let me share with you what an ATD. ATD is the Association of Talent Development. They conducted a study in 2016. Actually, they conducted a very similar study in 1990 sometime. And between then and 2016, really nothing had changed. It's the same numbers, more or less, that continue with just a percentage here or there different, where organizations across the board, across different kinds of industries, are spending 49.8% of their resources on reaction, 22.8% on learning, 14.3% on behavior, and only 7.6% on results. The others, 5.5%, being completely using different kinds of learning evaluation methodologies, maybe looking for ROI, etc. Now, that's a little bit sad. Because if you go into the industry research and look at different reports that are out there in the industry, there are clear indications that the heads of businesses, the heads of organizations are looking from L&D. What is it that has happened? How has your training changed my business? And the current level of reporting at that level across the board of organizations is about 4%. So only 4% of organizations are going back and telling their bosses, this is how my training impacted your business. 96% of us are not doing it. And that is becoming a huge challenge. Organizations are wondering what needs to be done and how do we. So many companies are thinking maybe we won't have an L&D department at all. We will just do some amount of operational training. And once in a while, if needed, we will send them outside for some team bonding exercises. And that's enough. There's enough other stuff that they can learn on their own that I don't need an L&D department. So it is really for us to become partners with our business and show that we can add value to their business, and that's when we'll see the real budgets rolling in. So we've talked a lot about doomsday conspiracies, why we are not getting budgets, why we are going to get shut down, what are we doing wrong? So now let's take a look at how we could try and make some of these wrongs as rights and actually think about how do we enter the world of level 3 and 4. So pretty much we are going to focus on 3 keys that we want to share with you of unlocking the power of the 4 levels. The first key is about keeping the end in mind. The second one is supporting on-the-job application. And the third one is about monitoring progress towards results. And I'll talk a little bit more about each of these as we continue. So this one is pretty much like the image that you see, that is that of a GPS, right? So how does a GPS work? You enter your destination that you want to get to, and possibly if it doesn't have data that points to your location, you possibly enter where you are at right now, and it charts out a route and it gives it to you. It gives you the directions that you need in order to get into the destination that you need. But the first thing that you do is still think about the destination that you want to get to. And most of our training programs are designed with no destination in mind. Organizations, our businesses come to us and tell us, hey, you know what, I think our people are not communicating too well. Let's design a communication skills training program for them. And we go ahead and say, yeah, you know what, just the other day I met this fabulous vendor who has the most amazing game on communication. And right now, gamification is the new in thing. So let's just buy this game on communication skills and give it to our participants. And you know what, we'll have a great training program. Sorry to say, it's not going to work like that. Because what you didn't enter into your GPS was, what was the end goal? What did you need to see change? How would you know that things were moving in the right direction? And that can only be known if we start to think about what is my end result? What is the highest level result for my organization? Where do we want to reach? So if my organization wants to eventually, the highest peak, wants to reach industry leader status in the organization, that in the industry that we are in, that's my highest level result. So how will my communication skills program lead to that? I don't know at this point. But I first of all didn't even know that that's the ultimate highest goal that my organization wanted to reach to. So some of the key principles while thinking about results are to determine what is the ROE, return on expectation. Now, many of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with the word return on investment. We are not talking about return on investment when it comes to Kirkpatrick, because return on investment is usually about the dollar bills, about the amount of money that is being spent, being saved as a result of doing the training program. But what it is not doing is it is not being proactive in nature. It is not thinking about how do I, as a learning and development department, how do I know what you as business want, and how can I work with you as business in order to get to the results that you want, get to the, thoughts that you had about what a successful training program looks like. So return on expectation, simply put, is what a successful training initiative delivers to key business stakeholders, demonstrating the degree to which their expectations have been satisfied. Now, return on expectation is not something that is discussed with business after 2 months of the program, after 6 months of the program, after any time of the program. Return on expectation is discussed with business right before you have even decided that there will be a training program. There is a need. You have done deep analysis of that need to understand what the issue is. And you're talking to business to understand that we are seeing these 5 problems. When you came to us with communication skills as an issue, we realized that there are 5 things that are going wrong. One is that the participants are not writing the kind of emails that they need to write to their stakeholders in order to get the best interaction with them, because it's either one-liners or there's no proper format or there's something wrong, and that's what we're noticing. We're also noticing that your people are very easily buckling in to the demands that the clients are giving them. So there is definitely what we're seeing as a scope for improvement in terms of being more assertive. And another thing that we're seeing is that these people are dealing with people across the globe. So there are a lot of cross-cultural nuances that are coming in that these people are not picking up on. So say, for example, somebody from the US is talking to you and they're saying, hey, how are you doing? I heard about the big festival in India. How's that going? These guys are saying great, and very quickly moving on to whatever it is that they're having. So that was a great opportunity to build a rapport with your client, but these people are not picking up on those opportunities, and that's something that we're seeing as well. So what are your thoughts around the issues? What issues are you seeing? And they will tell you what issues they are seeing, the business stakeholders. And then you will ask them, so how do I know, how will you know after, say, 6 months of the program or 1 year of the program, how will you know this program was successful? What will you see changing? I might see, maybe better customer satisfaction. I think I will see better customer satisfaction because my customers will be happier because these people are doing the right kind of things. They are picking up on those nuances. They are picking up on the, the kind of conversations they need to have. They're writing them the right kind of emails. So there is first-time resolution of issues, and the issues don't need to get escalated to their supervisors, which is what is currently happening. So these kind of things will happen that will tell me that, hey, that the program is going good. So if everything goes really well, what is the highest thing that you see happening? Oh, I think that, our customer satisfaction scores will go higher. Now, if that is something that they are seeing as the highest level, there is scope for us as L&D professionals here to push it a little higher and say, okay, so if customer satisfaction score increase, what does that mean to the business? What it means to the business is that we possibly have more return customers coming in. We possibly have more word of mouth recommendations about us. And in general, the industry buzz about us is good, which possibly could, okay, so if industry buzz is good and more customers are coming on, what does that lead to? That probably leads to customers feeling happy. All right, so now I know that your expectations are that you have a better industry buzz, which will possibly lead to that highest level flag that you wanted in terms of being the industry leader that you wanted to. So right from starting writing the right emails and customers, understanding the cultural nuances, what you're doing is building chain of evidence that leads you to that return on expectations, saying this was my expectation, are we meeting it or not? So it is really about thinking what is the expectation that they have, the business has, and then trying to measure for those expectations. The other thing that we have to keep in mind, of course, is supporting on-job application. Very, very crucial factor here, because the level three is behavior. That is the one that requires tactical bridges to be built, first of all, with line managers and supervisors, and also upwards to the senior leadership within the organization. And the reason I say line managers and supervisors have to be included here, these are the managers and supervisors of the participants. So there is 20 participants who attend a training program. Now, these 20 training participants are going to go back into the workforce, and they are going to start to try and apply some of the learning that they had. What happens then is that they try it and they see no success. They see no success because either their boss is telling them, hey, when you're being assertive, you learned about being assertive, go be assertive with maybe the client, with somebody else, somebody junior. Don't be assertive with me because you have to listen to what I'm telling you. So definitely whatever he learned or she learned in the training program is not working. There could be issues where there is just so much work that is being piled on this person that he or she just doesn't have the time to apply any of this. It could be that they're applying, but they're not really sure whether they're applying it well or they're not applying it well or what's going wrong. They don't know that yet. So that's why the line managers and supervisors are very important, because they are the ones who are going to enable that learning to change into behavior. By us thinking about something called required drivers right at the beginning. Required drivers are processes and systems that reinforce, monitor, encourage, and reward. All these four need to happen. Reinforcement of the knowledge that they have, monitoring of the behaviors, whether they are applying those behaviors on the job or not. Encouragement, saying, hey, I saw you apply that new behavior. You're doing really well. Here's a little pat on the back for you, a little name that goes up on the shop floor wall saying that you are doing a good job. And finally, some sort of reward. It doesn't have to be a monetary reward. It could be, I don't know, just gift vouchers or coupons or a little tea with the manager, whatever it is, some kind of reward that makes me feel that yes, it is good for me to apply these behaviors and somebody is watching me, somebody is giving me feedback. And that is what drives critical behaviors on the job. Critical behaviors are those behaviors that must change in order for the learning intervention to be successful and in order for return on expectations to be met. There are different ways, methods, tools, and techniques in which you can do it. I'm putting up a slide here which gives you some examples of what could be different support systems. Coaching and mentoring for encouragement, there is nothing like it. The more amount of coaching and mentoring you can do, the better it is. But you have to be a little careful with it here. If you are going to ask for their supervisors or their managers to be the coaches or mentors, is going to be important for you to set them up for success, the managers, I mean, by giving them possibly detailed observation forms, which tell them exactly what to observe for, what kind of behavior should I look out for, by possibly training them on how to be coaches or mentors, because sometimes the way feedback is given to participants is so ruthless that the participants will never try it again. So even thinking about how do I equip my managers to be good support system for my participants might be something for you to think about as well. Job aids are a great way of doing something quick and easy to reinforce knowledge. So you give them a little job aid that they stick up on their desktop somewhere, or a little something that they can reuse. So for example, within our company, we for a series of programs, we give them something like a calendar job aid. So it's got like this ring binder and like a table calendar sort of design. And then for the first module, they're given 3 or 4 or how many ever sheets to put in. So they open the ring binder and put those in. For the next module, they're given 4 more, and next module 4 more, and so on. So until they have like a job aid for every single module that they attended. Now, many of these could even be interactive in nature, where, if I have taught them how to do the SWOT analysis, then there might be a rewritable something on the job aid itself, where they can actually do the SWOT analysis on that job aid itself. So that is, it's useful. It's not just something which is looking pretty and sitting there, but it's something that they can actually use. That's a great support mechanism, which doesn't really cost too much money. You could think about doing follow-up modules, executive modeling, and I cannot stress the importance of that. Executive modeling is nothing but the seniors in the organization modeling the kind of behaviors that you want the participants to model. One of the most common things I hear when I attend training programs is, are you teaching my boss how to do this? Because he doesn't do it or she doesn't do it. And hey, they've got to be doing it. So very, very important that you have executive modeling going on. For accountability, you could have, dashboards, KPIs. You could think about how do they even self-monitor, whether that can work. Saying, I did today X, Y, and Z, which showed me that I could change my behavior in ABC ways. So you could even have things like that. You could have surveys, etc. The idea is for you to think through, how much time and effort do I need to put into this? Am I going to do this for every single program? Please don't. You can't. This is level 3 and 4 is time, resource, everything intensive. You would only do it for programs which are extremely strategic in nature, very, very important to the organization. That's when you will do level 3 and 4. So there, I would put in this amount of effort. I would think about what to do. And finally, the third key that I wanted to share with you is monitor progress towards results. These are the leading indicators. These are the short-term observations and measurements that suggest that critical behaviors are on track to create positive impact. Now, I already spoke to you a little bit about leading indicators when I was giving you the example of ROE, where I told you that I asked the manager, what was your highest level result, which was to become the industry leader. And I built something called the chain of evidence. So what will I see starting a week later? Will I see some sort of behavior or some sort of, the behavior will change, but will I see some sort of metric shifting somewhere? So if the people start to write better emails, what might be one of the quickest things that I will start to see? Perhaps the quickest thing that I'll start to see is lesser escalations, because one of the immediate impact of people writing the wrong kind of email was that there are too many escalations. So the moment I start to see fewer escalations happening, I know that things are moving in the right direction. Another leading indicator could be that if we do a participant survey, participants are saying that we are feeling more satisfied in the kind of emails that I'm writing to the customer. That could be a small leading indicator. So what are those short-term things that keep on happening on a regular basis that tell you that things are moving in the right direction? We have a completely non-work related example that we'd like to share with you here. So Kishore is, he's had a serious doctor's appointment, and he's been told you are morbidly obese and you need to do something in order to get, to want to live a longer life, you've got to do something. So Kishore immediately rushes to the gym, and the gym instructor asks Kishore, what do you want to accomplish? And he says that I want to improve my health so I live longer. Now, that's a very difficult goal to measure. I can only measure it when, unfortunately, Kishore is no longer alive. And then I can see whether he lived long enough or not. But I can do small things to make sure that he's moving in that right direction of wanting to live longer by improving his health. And that's why he receives something called a workout card. So he gets to track his workouts in terms of time, weight, exercise, etc. That's level 3. But progress in terms of percentage of body fat coming down, body mass index becoming lower, blood pressure sort of monitoring and becoming okay, his sugar levels becoming okay, his weight coming down. All those are leading indicators pointing to he's moving in the right direction of improving in health and living longer. So as you can see, it's not, I can't say I will do a communication program and there will be a 5% increase in sales in the organization. It's impossible to see the connection. But if I have a series of leading indicators, those leading indicators will tell me that things are moving in the right direction. And if they're not moving in the right direction, then I need to go ahead and make some changes, make some tweaks to my the kind of required drivers that I have. I might not necessarily send them back into training again, because it might not just be a training issue. If they had learned it, they are not applying it for some reason, and then let's try and see what those reasons are. So, that's something to keep in mind as well. So there could be individual outcomes, team outcomes, departmental outcomes, client responses, organizational. So this is something what we call your chain of evidence. This is the way you show your business that from the bottom of the mountain with individual outcomes to the top of the mountain with desired results is how our chain of evidence is showing. So if you can measure this, in terms of having had that discussion with business, what are those metrics that will help you see that things have changed? That's where you'll be able to show them the chain of evidence. So with that, at this point, I'm going to take a pause and stop talking because I've talked a lot. And I am going to open it up for questions from you. So if you have questions, let's take them at this point in time and see where we are coming from.
Thanks a lot, Preeti, for such an insightful session. We have a couple of questions coming in from the audience. So Triveni has a question that, level 3 was about behavior. So how do we, go on about measuring the change in behaviors in this model?
So like I said, you have to have figured out what behaviors need to change first. And unless that discussion is had, you will not be able to measure any kind of change in behavior. And then you will do a lot in order to do the required drivers and give the kind of support that people need in order to make that change in behavior. And it's only when the leading indicators start to shift will you start to see that behaviors have changed on the job. So am I going to sit and observe every single person all of the time? Might not necessarily be, but I might say do a dipstick survey of the participants that I had and observe a few of them to see if behaviors have changed or not. And by behaviors, I mean very specific things that we drill down with our stakeholders. I cannot say that a behavior is that a participant communicates better. That's not behavior. That's really not. So what could be behavior then? A behavior could be that the participant follows the 6-step process of email writing, which includes a beginning and a close and whatever else, and he's following that. Now that is easily observable behavior. So when we are talking about behaviors, we really need to think about, are these behaviors specific? Are these behaviors measurable? And do they pass something that we call as the video test? A video test is nothing but if I go on to the workflow, can I see a person doing something like that? Because if I say that they're communicating better, I don't think I can see that. But if I can say that I want that person to use the assertiveness skills process, I can see that they are using those 4 steps or not. So I have to try and come to as specific behaviors as possible, and then I'll be able to measure them.
Thanks, Preeti. So another of our attendees, Naveen, has a question. Like, what are the ways to document expectations from leaders? As their expectations from the program might change with the change in leadership, amid the training coverage. So what are the ways they can, ask leaders to document these expectations?
So what organizations that I've worked with have done is right at the beginning, when I have had that expectation discussion with them, I will document it and put it in some sort of a report saying that here are the expectations that we've agreed on. Here are the leading indicators. In fact, there is a whole format of creating a 4-level plan. and we'll fill out that plan and have that signed off with business as well, saying this is what we are working together towards. Now, if there is a change in management in between, I will go back to them and say, here's the program that we've been working on. Here are the expectations that were there from us. What are your thoughts? And if they say that there is drastic changes, then we will want to find out why those drastic changes are happening and what needs to happen from us. But it is about having those conversations and saying, this is the direction we were headed in, and this is the direction we would like to continue going in, or do you have other inputs? But there is actually documents which you can create in order to share with business.
Thanks, Preeti. One of our attendees also wants to know, how do you kind of measure ROE? You spoke a lot about measuring return on expectations. So are there some specific metrics we can apply to measure ROE?
Yeah, exactly. So it is about finding out from business. There is no one size fits all, because every organization measures things differently. Every organization has different kind of reporting structures, etc. So it is about speaking to your business and understanding from them what is it that will make you feel that things have changed. So just like I showed you a little job aid on what could be different required required drivers, there is another similar job aid that we can share with you when you attend the certification on what could possibly be different ways to measure return on expectation or the different leading indicators. But it is more about having the discussion with your business and coming up with it. There's no fixed answer to that.
Thanks. Ashish has a question that, could you give an example of, say, a pharma company who probably kind of use the Kirkpatrick model, where you might be aware of such companies where this was applied? He's particularly about the pharma sector.
For client confidentiality reasons, I cannot state the names right now, but I know I have worked at least with 2 pharma companies right here in India. There are a couple of case studies on the Kirkpatrick website, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's in the certified only tab. So people who are certified can access it, of pharma companies and hospitals even who have applied the Kirkpatrick model and made some changes. So it works very well in the pharma company or any industry for that matter. And I can see Shruti's question of NGOs works fabulously well right now. In fact, we are working with the biggest NGO of them all, the United Nations. So we're working with them to apply some of the Kirkpatrick model philosophies into a large training intervention that they were running. And it's going very well. So it works very well with NGOs. And we do a lot of work, at least in the US, the Kirkpatricks themselves do a lot of work with NGOs there. And exactly, it doesn't matter, Shruti, to answer to your question, whether the outcomes are quantitative and mostly qualitative. Kirkpatrick is fabulous for that kind of thing, because it is about saying what behaviors need to change. And if I do get that behavior, then that's where I need to measure it. So it's very easily doable, not easily, very definitely doable, I would say.
Hari Prasad has a very interesting question. So he's asking that, in my knowledge, evaluation of behavioral change is a very subjective one. So is there any systematic way to kind of approach this in order to get a clear stats on improvement? So how do we go about that?
And again, I'm just going to repeat myself. It is about deciding what behaviors need to change and how will I see those behaviors changing, having that discussion with business. And then, so yeah, it is subjective. It will be subjective if you say, I want to see communication skills change, but it will not be so subjective if you want to say that I want to see X principle applied or X whatever concept applied when they're writing an email. I can see that changing. And I can see, as a result of that changing, I can see that certain metrics are changing. And when I link the two together, I can see that the stats are there for me. So it is about going as deep as possible and as specific as possible.
Thanks, Preeti. We have another question from Aditya, who's asking that, for the training programs for which we don't have a level 3 and level 4, how do we kind of justify why is the training program required? And what is going to be the, impact of the top management, which is a believer of only in tangible gains. So how do you kind of go about that?
So you have to have that discussion with, again, your business, that every program is not possible, not viable, and a serious waste of resource to measure up to 3 and 4. because every program is not strategic in nature. As an organization, if you can agree with them, so certain organizations, by the way, have decided to do only those kind of training programs. They are not doing any other kind of training programs at all. So that's one way of doing it. That's a very drastic way of doing it, but organizations have done it. But the other way of doing it is saying that there are these calendar programs that we will run, and we will run them because they are feel good, or they are good to have, or every manager in our organization or every employee in our organization needs to go through them, but we will not be measuring them. We know that they are learning, and we can see that they are learning because of the either formal tests that I did or observations that I did in the classroom, which tells me that I'm learning, and we are going to leave it at that. We will not. So having that discussion is going to be important, because it's simply not possible to do every single thing with regard to level 3 and 4. So yeah.
Thanks, Preeti. Arindam here has a very specific question. Like, how do you understand suitability of applying the Kirkpatrick model in a medium-sized engineering concern? How do we do that?
It doesn't matter. It's a small organization, large organization, engineering, law, NGO, whatever organization. It's because Kirkpatrick model is not rooted in any industry specific philosophies. It is rooted in common sense. That's all there is to it. So common sense can be applied pretty much anywhere, right? So if I'm saying that in a medium-sized engineering company, I'm going to run a training program which is very strategic in nature, and it will help us move from a medium-sized to a higher medium-sized organization, that's an important program for me, and I will do everything in my power to make sure that I understand what the return on expectation is. I understand what the behaviors need to change. I drill down and understand what the leading indicators should be, and I can run it. So it doesn't matter.
That's good to know. Shahana has a very interesting question here. She wants to know that, is it enough to know that the participants are doing better after the training, or will we require the evidence that connects better behavior precisely to the training? Because there could be several factors that impact better performance. So how do you kind of prove that, it was only the training that kind of did the trick?
And I think that's a lovely question, Sahana, because that hits the nail on the head. We are not out there to prove that it was only training that did it, because it wasn't only training that did it. There was a lot of other factors, like we got the supervisors to give them feedback and give them coaching. So the supervisor could take to credit. Market conditions changed and suddenly something new happened. So fine, because of that, sales improved. So it had nothing to do with training. The only reason that we can still hold our ground and say that we had a contribution, and we only had a contribution to it, was because right at the beginning, before the training program was designed, we sat down with business and understood with them, what indicators do you see changing as a result of this training program? So they said that this metric would change and that metric would change, and those metrics are shifting. So was training wholly and solely responsible for it? Possibly not. Was sales training a contributor to it? Most certainly so. And that is because we had agreed with them that these metrics would change. So when you try it out like that, there is a lot less pushback that you get from business and supervisors and everybody to take credit, because we are not trying to take credit. We are just saying we were a contributor to the success. With ROI, and I have nothing against ROI, but with ROI, the philosophy is that I want to take credit. I want to show you how much percentage training added to that. And that's a little bit reactive. So that's where the problem is.
Great. Thanks, Preeti. Hari Prasad has another interesting question that, L3 and 4 are time consuming. So how long does it usually take to run and complete the level 3 and 4 evaluation for a mid-sized firm?
Again, it depends on the kind of skills that you're trying to change. There are no one size fits all. You might have, for example, 5 years ago, there were a lot of companies who were thinking about their 2020 mission. Now that program would have taken 5 years to complete level 3 and level 4. But if there are organizations today who are starting to think that, okay, we should have a 2020 mission, they will only need 2 years. So it very much depends on what is your level 4. If my level 4 is to go from, 5 million company to a 1 billion company, that's going to take me a heck of a lot of time. So it depends. on the organization. It depends on the kind of behaviors that need to be shifted. And but again, to simplify the answer, in general, leadership skills when you are training, usually between 6 to 12 months is a fair amount of time to monitor things. Anything less than that, sometimes it's too less. More than that only depends on what the organization wants to achieve.
We have another question linked to that. Bevo Smitha is asking, ideally, how many trainings one person should undergo in a year in order to see a behavioral change? Number?
No, simply because you shouldn't. I hate that organizations have, as a KRA for people, that you have to attend 6 training programs in a year.
Right.
So they attend whatever training program comes their way, and they just go in, sit in a training program with no idea of why they're there. And that kind of a training program is better not attended than attended at all. So in order to see behavior change, is what your question is saying, then that person attending the same kind of training. So if they attended a training program on influencing better, attending 4 training programs on influencing better is not going to help them influence better, because they're learning the same thing again. The learning has happened. What has needs to happen is behavior change. And for that, you need to do all the things that we've spoken about in the session for it to happen. So yeah.
Ashish has a very specific question here. Like, as an industry average, how much percentage is the failure rate for level 3 and 4?
The failure will happen only, and I haven't come across research on that, but the failure will happen if you haven't drilled down on your level 3s and level 4s properly with business. So if you, when you were thinking of what behaviors need to change, or when you were discussing with them what leading indicators would change, if those had been thought of wrongly, then there is a failure, because you didn't measure the right things, and hence you are seeing a failure. So hence there is something called monitor and adjust, which you will constantly be doing to say, okay, things are not moving in the right direction. So what's going wrong? Is it that the learning itself failed and there hasn't been no learning? So should we go back to the training room? Is it that the culture of the organization is not allowing them to apply certain learning? So should we go ahead and think about what to do with that? Or am I measuring the wrong behavior? Should some other behavior change happen? So it depends a lot on what the changes need to happen.
Right. We have another specific question from Kanika. So she's asking, how can we apply L3 and L4 in e-learning specifically?
So again, with e-learning, gamification, not so much with micro-learning because I wouldn't apply it there, but any long-term intervention and strategic intervention, if I am thinking, it again goes back to the same thing. The e-learning has to be thought of from the point of view of what was the end in mind. You again go back to speaking to your business, saying that they will undergo a training program. What do you want to achieve from this training program? What do you want to see change? What kind of behaviors do you want to see change? And then you think about it like that. Though, in my opinion, any intervention, whether it's face-to-face training or e-learning or gamification or micro-learning, is not sufficient by itself. It has to be a series of things that happen, a series of different things that the participant undergoes in order to achieve that final behavior change.
Great. Thanks a lot, Preeti. I think we've answered almost all the questions that we got, and we are ready to kind of wrap up today's webcast. We have some more questions coming in, and I would request the speaker to take them offline.
Sure.
Once again, we thank our today's webcast partner, C2C OD, and our speaker, Preeti, for the invaluable information that you have shared with us today. And meanwhile, I'll ask the attendees, you can provide your feedback in the survey link provided in the chat section, because your input matters to us. Stay tuned for many more such exciting sessions. And thank you and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.